All right, Kobe, it's time. It's time. Week 5 picks. But first, let's recap last week. The Brigade went 7-3, folks, standing for a 29-11 record for the season. They're at a 73% hit on these picks so far. Kobe, yourself, me, and you went 6-4. You're 25-15 on the season. I'm 24-16. Listen, four picks back from the Brigade. I'm 5. I'm in last place. Hooray! Juan had a literal mid game, 5-5. 26-14 for the season, 65% hit. Kobe, you're at a 63% hit. I'm at 60. I've been at 64 a minute now. I've been going 6-4. That's about. I'm consistent right there. All right, call me Mr. Consistency, if you will. But first, our first pick of the week belongs to the Georgia Southern versus Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. Make sure you say that right. It's the Chanticleers. Listen, it's a battle in Myrtle. I have a feeling that this game's probably getting pushed up because of the hurricane. I think you would have to. I hope it's not canceled. But who do you got in this game?
Buckle in if you're the Brigade right here. We have got a hot lineup worth of games. When Robert sent it to me earlier this week, I immediately texted back and I was like, I hope you don't expect answers about these games right now because it's going to take me a day or two to kind of think about this and digest it and just, I had to do some, little light research on, what I liked. And with Coastal and Georgia Southern, I agree. I would say it is getting either moved up or pushed back, one or the other. I just don't think on Saturday there's any way that they can gamble it. And I know it can't get canceled because it's a conference game for them, so they're going to have to play it at some point. But in this game, Georgia Southern looked good, went up Nebraska, won, big upset. But I just think Coastal's too much for them still. I think Coastal's kind of become a premier team in the Sun Belt. They're right up there with App State, in my opinion. They've been in the top 25 pretty regularly over the past 4 years. I think Coastal wins and kind of starts its march to a Sun Belt championship game, possibly against App State. So
Sun Belt, Fun Belt, baby. Listen. It's clean across the board, right? That the Chanticleers, I think, will win this game. Um, in my opinion, 59% of the brigade thinks this as well. Listen, Jamie Chadwell has that program looking like a well-oiled machine for the Sun Belt, right? I think you have to look at it that way. And to me, listen, Georgia Southern has been fairly well this season, but I just think that the Chanticleers are too much. The Mullets of Myrtle come out of this game victorious. I see in the brigade the hashtag one is mid from Black Adonis. Oh boy, listen, he ain't here to defend himself, so I can't let that slide just yet. Because if he's here, then he can defend it for himself. But in the meantime, uh, I guess we'll have to make sure he sees that. Pat wants us to make sure that Juan sees that. But moving on to our next game, UW, right? The Great Value Go Dogs coming to the Rose Bowl, full of their 10, literally 10 fans, basically, to take on the UCLA Bruins. Kobe, who you got in this one?
Um, I think UW kind of made a statement against Michigan State. They kind of put their name in the hat, if you will, for the Pac-12 conversation. In being considered possibly one of the top four teams in the pack, and UCLA and Chip Kelly, like they're wishing it was Chip Kelly Oregon days, and it's not out in LA. They look bad. The stadium looks, terrible on attendance. It's going to be ugly. I think Washington rolls pretty big, and I worry Chip Kelly just isn't gonna last to see UCLA make the transition out of the pack. So
It's a damn shame, in all seriousness, to see the Rose Bowl, which is such a storied stadium, be so damn empty on game days, man. It's just a shame. It shows you the LA market just don't give a shit. Listen, I've got UW rolling big here. 62% of the brigade has them winning as well. Juan had them winning. Um, Washington's. I feel like you have to start really taking Washington serious here. Listen, they've done well for sure. And the Pac-12, I think you have to take a little bit more serious than what we thought for sure before the season. I mean, you've got USC, you've got Oregon. Like I said, you got Utah still. Now you've got Washington. Listen, Washington State, even man, Washington State with Cameron Ward. Listen, that dude looked good against Oregon. Looked good. So the Pac-12 is like quietly one of those conferences that are doing fairly well. But I've got UW here, probably big. They'll probably provide more of a home field advantage for themselves more than anything with their fans, if you will. Next matchup, Michigan Wolverines versus the Iowa Hawkeyes, a rematch of the Big Ten championship last year, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Juan picked Michigan on this one. Koby, who do you have?
Yeah, I got Michigan too with Juan. Iowa, Iowa's like a top 10 defense. I mean, they have really been playing, maybe even top five. They've been playing some stout defense. And, the old saying, defense win championships and all that. But whoever said that sure hasn't seen the offense Iowa's running
It
because
is.
I
Whew,
don't
it is
care how
boo
good of
boo.
defense you play, you're not winning if Iowa's your offense. It's just one of those things. Michigan's gonna maybe even keep Iowa from scoring. And while I do see Iowa giving Michigan some trouble early, kind of like Maryland, I just see Michigan probably winning by 17 this week.
Listen, Iowa's offense is doo doo. Like it's dookie. It's hot dog water, whatever you want to call it. Michigan rolls, and I mean big. 88% of the brigade. Like I said, Juan has Michigan. Listen, you talk about defense, and that's fine, right? But it's funny because Miami fans will say one thing, but Michigan fans will probably tell you that their offense looks the same, if not better, now that Gaddis is gone. Um, and to me that's important. Blake Corum is looking like one of the best running backs in the country through 4 games. Um,
And it's
and
nice they finally have a quarterback.
they really do. They
The
really
two
do.
quarterback thing only works for so long. Sooner or later, the team needs you to decide who's going to lead them.
You can't. You're 100% right. I think you look at, like I said, you've got an actual quarterback that can beat you with his feet. By the way, keep that in mind. But then you have Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards as well. Listen, that offense looks, like I said, better if the same, if not better than last year with Gaddis. Let's can't say the same for Miami, folks. Just gonna let y'all know that. Um, you know, Black Adonis says he could start at quarterback for Iowa right now, probably be an upgrade. You know what? Suit up, fam. Let's do that. Yeah, they need all the help they can get offensively. Defense, listen, we've seen this in the past. Abysmal offense, 2019. Abysmal offense, stout defense. It doesn't win you championships though. You have to have it. You have to have that balance. But Michigan, I have Michigan up big here um, over the Hawkeyes. Next matchup, Battle of ACC. Surprisingly, Wake Forest coming off of a loss, overtime loss for that matter, at home against Clemson. Listen, played Clemson extremely well. Defense, there's some problems on the defense, but that offense with Sam Hartman, listen, that's a bona fide offense that can score points. They travel to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. Listen, Florida State is looking like a legit contender to win the ACC championship this year. Battle of the ranked teams. Koby, who do you got on this one?
So this one's one of the ones I really had to go back and forth on. Wake looked so good against Clemson last week, scoring back and forth, back and forth. It took double overtime to decide that game. I was kind of leaning on the Hurricane with this game some too, just in my thought process because I just think it's going to be soggy down in Tallahassee. It's going to be wet, could still be some remnants of rain, and Wake Forest identity is throwing the ball, airing it out, throwing the ball, catching the ball in space, and scoring points. And I think that Florida State showed us against LSU and other teams they're one of the premier rushing teams in the ACC right now. And I looked it up. Florida State has a top 30 defense currently, overall. So
Jared First is looking really good.
give me a soggy one down in Tallahassee, but give me Florida State winning because they're able to run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, and Wake Forest struggles throwing the ball in the wet conditions.
Well, then, Juan went a different route and chose Wake Forest, as did the Brigade. The 69% of the Brigade chose Wake Forest. Give me the Seminoles, though. You talk
If
about the.
if if last week had been different, if they had beaten Clemson, I agree, but I worry now.
Well, I think you have to take into context the weather conditions, man. Like, if any, I was a high school quarterback at best, but I can still tell you that rain and wet conditions, it just makes for a little bit more difficult of a time to throw the ball effectively, right? Listen, I don't think damn Bishop Sycamore would be worried about Wake Forest run game at this point. Everybody knows, man. Just stop the pass. If you can do it, you win. And their defense ain't helping them out either. Listen, defense can cause problems for Wake Forest and Sam Hartman specifically. I think that happens. Just saying that I think you could honestly see the defense play a role in winning this game if you're Florida State. I've got Florida State in a close one over Wake Forest. Uh, Moving to the Big 12, I think this game is probably one of the better games in the Big 12, probably the best in the Big 12. And listen, you could have talked Texas or Oklahoma, but they lost, so they don't get my respect this week. Give me Oklahoma State traveling to Baylor, meeting up with Dave Aranda. The mullet versus the bald, right? The bald man versus the mullet. A matchup of hairstyles and two different offense versus a defensive minded team. Uh, Kobe, who you got on this?
Yeah, this really is. This is the premier defense in the Big 12 versus one of, arguably with Sark and Oklahoma. Oklahoma State is one of the premier offenses in the Big 12. So it's really, it's also a rematch of the Big 12 championship game last year. And I think that's where I'm really drawing my pick from this week. Oklahoma State, they're a top 5 team last year. They're playing Baylor in a Big 12 championship game that they're favored in. And honestly, the way things are looking, yes, Cincinnati looks good, but if Oklahoma State is 12-1, are you really going to argue Cincinnati at that 4 spot? And it was their game to lose, and they came up woefully short
I think it
at
was like a half a
at
yard,
an
half a
inch
yard.
at an inch line from being in the playoffs. And so I just think that this has been a game. I know how it is in locker rooms. I know how it was after we lost to Texas. And it wasn't necessarily directly at Texas, but it's just one of those things of like, you came so close. How are you going to respond? And then the fact that they get to play the exact same team again, this has been circled on Oklahoma State's calendar since January when
Yeah,
they're in there
since
running.
they lost, yeah.
Yeah. When they're in there in the winter, when they're running, when they're squatting, when they're, running routes on air all summer, when you're doing conditioning, like Oklahoma State has been ready to play Baylor. And I think that, you know, they go in there and they take care of business. Now, I don't know, probably a close one. Historically, this game has been very back and forth, just on who wins, who loses. It's kind of been a coin flip every year, no matter how good either team is. But give me the emotional edge and the chip on the shoulder for Oklahoma State to kind of have a revenge for, losing so close.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna take my pick. I'm gonna make it quick. Oklahoma State wins this. Juan has Oklahoma State winning this. Brigade has Baylor at 72%. Listen, Baylor got tested by BYU and it cost them. We kind of saw some chinks in the defensive armor, if you will. If BYU did that, I think Oklahoma State can do it better. So I think Oklahoma State wins here. Um, even to the Brigade, right? Brigade. Listen, I'm 5 picks back, but I think I think give me Oklahoma State on this one. The Aggies next matchup going to start Vegas. It's the Jimbos versus the Cowbells. A&M actually came off of a, I guess you could say a, a win against Arkansas. I don't really know how to say it because that was more devastating for Arkansas than it was anything. But nonetheless, listen, you come out of Jerry World with a win. Now you travel to Starkville, take on Mike Leach in that air raid offense. Who do you got in this one?
This is also a game kind of like Baylor, Oklahoma State. It's been back and forth since Texas A&M has joined the West. They're 5-5 against Mississippi State. Like that's amazing to think about. Um, I just don't think Texas A&M is a great team. I think they lost to App State at home. If Miami just had a competent OC, they would have lost to Miami. And if the kick last week is a foot higher, they lose to Arkansas. Or if Arkansas doesn't fumble that ball for an 80-yard touchdown, I mean, you're looking at Texas A&M could easily be a one-win team right this second. And now I'm not saying Mississippi State's some great powerhouse, but I just think the Bulldogs in the West handle business this week, and Mississippi State finally beats Texas A&M and kind of exposes them for what they are.
Yeah, listen, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't really know how else to put it. But what I saw from A Chain, ever since Max Johnson, for that matter, let me transition. Ever since Max Johnson became the starting quarterback, that offense it has started to grow a little bit, and it's those that's what you need, right? The defense has been playing pretty damn good, right? But the offense, you're starting to see those offensive starting to click a little bit. And I think when it goes to Starkville, that defense is going to play enough to help your offense. Give me A&M in this one. Juan chose Mississippi State. The Aggies are 60% favorites here based off of what the Brigade chose. Listen, I think it's a close game. I just do. But I think I've give me the Aggies. Listen, I dislike Jimbo, but I've been proven wrong too many times with this. So until he proves me wrong again, just saying. Um, that's just my thought. I think give me Aggies in a close one. Kentucky traveling to the Grove, taking on Ole Miss. Kobe, who you got?
Um, I keep it short and simple compared to a couple of the other ones. I think Kentucky finally proves that they're a top 10, top 15 team consistently, and they can handle big matchups away. I think they get it done against Ole Miss. I mean, I think Kentucky plays good enough defense that they can contain Ole Miss's offense, and then I think they're going to be able to score. Will it be a close game? Yes. Would a key turnover here or there possibly be what changes the outcome of the game? 100%. But I think Kentucky finally kind of proves that they may be the second best team in the East, and they may be a top four, top three team in all the SEC. I think they get it done.
I'll tell you this. Give you two things here, two situations. One, Kentucky gets Chris Rodriguez back. Two, Zach Evans is doubtful to play if I'm not mistaken. There's a question if he plays or not. If he doesn't play, and with Chris Rodriguez being back, I'm just saying Kentucky. With that being said, I also chose Kentucky. Ole Miss was the choice for Juan. Brigade, 55%. Like I said, we knew it was going to be a close toss up. Kentucky, though. Listen, the SEC East has three top 10 teams, and to this point, all three teams have looked the part. Listen, I'm not knocking Ole Miss here, hotty toddy fans, but I think Kentucky can go on the road in a hostile environment and win a game. They did it. I know Florida. Don't listen. Florida's environment is a lot more hostile than Ole Miss, in my opinion. Uh, they went in there and they handled business in a convincing way to me. So I think they get it done here at the Grove. Um, Probably the game of the week. Like I would say, this is probably one of the better games of the week, if like maybe even the year. NC State Folks, this is a top 10 matchup. We wouldn't have been saying this 2 years ago. Top 10 matchup. NC State travels to Death Valley to take on Clemson in the night game. Who you got?
I think you said it right there. NC State travels to Clemson into Death Valley into the night game. NC State's lost 15 of its last 17 matchups against Clemson, and then they roll into Death Valley at night. I and again, if the hurricane is a factor in that, if there's wet conditions, Clemson's built to run the ball, big and powerful. NC State definitely, when I've watched them, is much more their quarterback. And at that point, again, I think Clemson wins. I mean, it just is. They're kind of built like, as much as we hate to say, they're built like a Georgia. They're built like an Alabama. Clemson doesn't lose at home. Not in the past 5 or 6 years. So I think it's a good game, but I think Clemson ends up winning.
So I just, excuse me, Tanil actually picked Ole Miss in the previous game. Um, Listen, I just think that Clemson is too much. I had my doubts about DJU, man. I really did, and then, he got it done against Wake Forest, right? I think you're seeing a better team defensively than what you saw with Wake for sure. So this will be the true litmus test, I guess. Think that Clemson gets it done. I really do. 93% of the brigade has that same feeling there. Juan going with the upset, choosing NC State. I think. Listen, whoever wins, it'll be a damn good game. I expect it to be a good game. I think it'll be a close one.
Whoever wins, you can pretty much hand them the ACC, I think.
I think so too. Landon thinks the Fighting Dabos, the Tigers, 62-3 has the Clemson as well. Bama traveling to Arkansas. Who you got?
Oh man, you know I can't go against my man Sam Pittman. I really think the Hogs were the better team last week in against Texas A&M. I think you play that game 10 times, Arkansas wins 9.5 times. It just had unlucky fumble that went all the way for a touchdown, and then honestly a really good kicker in Little who just got unlucky on that kick too because it's still a really good kick. I think the hard thing is Bama's honestly really just been dominating this since I don't think Arkansas's won since like '06.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, but I did a little searchy search, and Alabama's offensive line has really struggled picking up the blitz and has struggled giving up sacks, and Bryce Young has struggled under pressure. Arkansas is top 5 in sacks and quarterback pressures, which means if they can get to him, you just never know what can happen in Fayetteville. So I think their kicker, Cam Little, gets a little redemption this week, a little last-second field goal, Hogs on top, beating Alabama. Let's hear it.
I mean, listen, the graphic shows one thing, so keep that in mind. Last minute audible there, but it is neither here nor there. Listen, Bama on the road has just been underwhelming recently. Now it used to be dominant, like there was no question. I just think Bama does enough to pull this out. Juan has this as well, right? Juan has Alabama and the Brigade with 100%, or sorry, 62%. Sorry, 62% going Alabama. Koby, you ready for the game of the week?
Yep.
Georgia going to Como, night game, 7:30, SEC Network. Who you got? What's your score prediction?
I think score prediction, I went 45-0 Dogs. Half of the Dogs by 90 call. But it's just one of those games that Missouri could easily be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the SEC. They're going to do some things that try to put you in uncomfortable positions. It's going to be a night game, but Missouri has looked bad enough. I doubt their stadium is full of Missouri fans. I would say at best it'll be 50-50, Georgia, Missouri, if not more. Um, and the weather's not going to bother that game. So if we're and even if it did, even if the weather bothered it and we having to run the ball, I take us in that matchup too. We're going to roll pretty big, kind of have a bounce back game. A lot of people talking about, oh, the Dogs may not be the number one team after Kent State. I think you have something to prove, and I think you prove it. And I hate it for the next three teams that we're going to have to prove it on all of them.
No, you're not wrong. So Juan has Georgia, obviously, 45-6, right? Giving up a couple field goals. I've got this one big as well. I got 52 to nothing. Defense is gonna show out, folks. It just watch. It's gonna show out. I'm just saying, 52 to nothing. Watch, make it happen. I was a point away last time. I just don't see them landing. Dogs by 90 is what we're hearing. 60-33 says 60-33. Not mad. Hey, y'all, watch this. That's what it's going to be. Hey, it very well could. Very well could. Um, Listen, I think there's no question about this. Georgia goes in here and absolutely dominates, and anything less than pure domination is an utter disappointment because Missouri is the. It's sad to say this. They're the worst team in the SEC. Vanderbilt's better than them right now. And they just got beat by Alabama, but that's not a knock to that, right? That's just what it is. So, 52 nothing, man. Dogs is going to just steamroll Missouri.